The letters Vincent van Gogh wrote to his brother Theodorus are yellow, crumbling and torn in places as ink stains slowly eat through the paper. They are contained in the cellar of Amsterdam's Van Gogh Museum in a bomb-proof vault. I have heard of Vincent. Poor, depressed, starving artist, lonely, self-mutilating genius, ultimately another too-soon suicide. But reading his letters to Theo, this is not my impression now. Rather, I see Vincent failing his classes due to an insatiable appetite for argument, taking work as a lay preacher in a mining village, giving away his clothing and money, nursing the miners in spirit and in body, writing to Theo, there is still so much slavery in the world. Vincent, who received 150 francs from Theo every month, but spent that money on models and supplies, living for days on crusts and coffee, who sold so little but lived off his art, trading drawings for bread, who offered his severed ear to a prostitute, offering his body for hers, as he offered his vision so we might see the colors exploding in this world all around us and love this life as he did. Vincent, who knew exactly what he was doing when, at 26, he wrote to Theo, I will be poor. I will be a painter. I want to remain human. Go slow. Stop thinking. Look around. You'll see something beautiful if you open yourself. This is what Vincent teaches us, stepping back from the canvas to deliberate for 2 hours before applying his next stroke. This is what he teaches us, walking 3 days and nights on bruised feet from Courrières to Quesmes, trading sketches for scant meals, awaking first in an abandoned carriage, then in a woodpile, last during a misty rain in a hay bale. This is what he teaches, living in villages of miners and weavers and writing to Theo, suffering without complaint is the one lesson to be learned in this life. This is what he teaches, finding paintings in the darkest corners of the poorest huts, in the wheat sprouting from the soil, the fire bursting from his eyes, hoping to make some scratch in which there might be something human, seeking such a power to love that he might love the very stones until he had a lover's insight, a lover's blindness, until he looked upon the stars and saw what he could only call God, eternity in its place above the world. Vincent painted eternity, always dancing, each stroke a step, a story, each painting a fabric woven from sweat, dust, and blood. He said, if a picture of peasants smells of pig and smoke, potato steam, that's not unhealthy. Said he wanted those potato eaters to hang his paintings in their huts. He said his ambition was limited to a few clods of earth, sprouting wheat, an olive grove, a cypress. Vincent loved the grasslands, the woods and the fields, and the snow and the rain and the storm. He showed us the world, pulsing with light, stroked into curves and curls, showed us the unspeakable as he wrote to Theo, the laws of colors are unutterably beautiful. He felt a certain power of color awaken within him, a power to make blues sleep, to make reds and greens throb with lonely passions, to see peasant's skin the color of a dusty potato and hear it speak of manual labor and honestly earned food, a power to build the world anew from primary colors, applying paint like worked earth until he no longer painted what he saw, but blanketed the sun with clouds, drew down the rain, tilled the soil, grew the wheat, tended gardens, and built those chairs, bed frames, tables, and walls. He said he wanted his portraits to appear to people living a century later as apparitions, and he gave us eternal dancers, faces quivering with fever and emotion, human and alive. Vincent always describes himself in reds, yellows, and blues, these colors always shining through or trembling just beneath the surface of his self-portraits, bursting forth in his final dance as swirling strokes of blue flame carry his body into the walls, into the air, into the storm, leaving a last vision of his face composed from shocks of red, a pale, glowing yellow, grim, silent, the still breathing remains of a quiet man who felt a great fire in his soul but seemed a wisp of smoke to those around him. In the end, he knew there were no more words, only the warmth of oil on canvas beckoning to passers-by, those of us who turn to his paintings to feel the blood flow back into our hands and wonder what other warmth he might have left us. And I find myself wondering what hot shadows and throbbing red glass would have given truth and beauty to the church in Courrières that Vincent sheltered in when the Allied soldiers inside refused to surrender and were burnt alive. Or what bursting reds, oranges, and yellows he would set against the smoky blue sky of Arles when the yellow house he dreamed of making an artist commune was destroyed by Allied bombers. Or what bristling blue-grays would scratch across the canvas to depict a bomb-proof vault in which his letters lie, yellowing. Yes, I have heard of Vincent. Misunderstood genius and commercial failure, and I hear this is to blame for his suicide, and that we who have made him a posthumous millionaire understand when we bow our heads to his tragedy. But what if we understood? Vincent had a dream that just as he took a train to the points on a map of France, he might take death to reach a star. When he walked into a field and shot himself in the abdomen, this was no cruel or impulsive goodbye. It was, like his paintings, deliberate. He returned to his room, lay on his bed, and started smoking. When he missed dinner, the innkeeper's family grew worried. A year earlier, Vincent had painted Starry Night after admitting himself to an asylum. A doctor was called upon. The damage was done. Theo arrived the next morning. They were alone for more than 2 hours. In his pocket, Vincent had a letter that he had written for his brother. In it, he wrote, "There are many things I should like to write you about, but I feel it is useless." Further on, he wrote, "Really, we can only make our paintings speak." And I think of that day, of Theo's silent goodbye to Vincent, and listen as Vincent explains how he still lives in brushstrokes on canvas. Listen as he explains he is simply becoming points of light, swirling into a larger palette, flowing back into his primary colors, fading yellow skin, mixing with his bloody wound and ruddy hair, swimming in the calm blues of his room. I see Theo hold his brother's hand, plant one last kiss on his sweating brow, and leave as the stars swirl in through the window, and Vincent dreams of his next long journey. Go slow. Stop thinking. Look around.